Necessity or desire is the mother of all invention. What do we need? What do you need? Taking ideas, requests, and input as we discuss our planet's needs in today's not so distant future, whatever. Good evening. We got Brain Trust here tonight. That includes Cassie and Placeholder, and we're discussing inventions for the future. Feel free to talk to us in the chat or request an invite. As regular, I'm always thinking of new ways to invent alcohol. As you can see, I put it to use very well.
Yes.
Anyway.
So, are we talking like any level of technology? By the way, I'm sorry, I'm congested tonight, guys. I have had really bad allergies.
Look, here's my idea. If you have an idea for a better football, or if you have an idea for like an interstellar, I don't know, multi-star Dyson sphere, I'm down. Let's talk.
So, I'm thinking okay. So ultimately, we will become a Type 1 civilization. Our species will when we achieve total planetary control. One way that we might do that, we're at about 0.7, according to some theoretical physicists like Michio Kaku. It's like 0.77. We're almost there. But we invent nanites that convert. It's like nanites that convert matter into other matter, or non-organic matter into organic matter, so it can't be used to kill things. And we use that to scrub all of the plastic out of our environment and turn it into just amino acids or whatever that local environment needs. So let's say it's nitrogen poor soil. Just throw plastic onto it, have the nanites come and convert it into nitrogen, and then it rains and everything and washes it deep into the soil. So it rejuvenates the soil. We could use it for different nutrients and amino acids in order to perfect the soil in whatever area we need, and we then can grow food anywhere. We can even use it off-world.
You know, you just put an idea into my head that I want to say it's not really an invention, so I don't feel like it fits in this, but we need to have a discussion in the future at some point about legalizing industrial hemp. Because as far as like resowing fallow fields and the something like 50,000 industrial applications, industrial hemp is amazing.
Hemp is amazing, period. I'm staring at like 14 or 3 of my corsets that are actually made of hemp.
The first law regarding the first law in the United States regarding not marijuana, I'd say cannabis, was that all farmers were required to also grow hemp.
We have weird laws here.
Yeah.
Yep.
In Minnesota, it's illegal to give alcohol to a moose.
I'm assuming that there is.
I don't know why I remember that.
In Hall County?
I'm pretty sure it's pretty scary when you give alcohol to a moose, and people in Minnesota would have reason to worry about that.
In Hall County, it's illegal to sell sex toys. Case in point, why there's no sex shops in Hall County.
Wow. I knew fellatio was illegal in the state of Georgia, but I didn't realize.
Yeah. Yep. I live in...
And by the way, it's probably the state where the most fellatio happens.
This is true.
I mean, not even percentage-wise by populace, just sheer number of BJs given in Georgia. No, never mind. We're an educational channel for the most part.
Yes.
I keep saying that.
And there goes any chance of monetization. We got to get on top of that, guys.
I'm not worried about it. It's we wouldn't get the monetization anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
By an ironic twist of fate. Anyway, that brings us round circle back to inventions we need in our near future. And I'm going to advocate for the Pykrete platform. This is an invention we definitely need in the not so distant future. The Pykrete platform.
You know what? You should patent that.
What?
Patent it.
I'm pretty sure that Pykrete's already patented.
No, your design.
Yeah.
I haven't completed a design. It's just a concept. It's more of like a jumble of thoughts. Not quite even a formulated idea. Because it's just the potential is so vast. I can't stop my brain long enough to focus on one concept.
ADD life, yo.
Yeah, dude. ADD.
Fucking
ADD
terrible.
people never, ever, ever get patents. The people that hang out with ADD people get patents. And we call them Edisons.
Yep.
Anyway, ideas for the future, definitely putting Pykrete platforms on the table here. We need a design for a Pykrete platform, and basically it can be used for so many things. You can make them go float out in the ocean in a big circle, and build a coral reef inside of them, and do all kinds of scientific testing, or just have them as energy generating solar platforms floating in the ocean and reflecting solar rays back out into space, so that we can slow down that global greenhouse effect.
And it does nothing. There are no birds in that area. There are no birds in that area, so it's going to have a very small environmental impact if we do that.
Not to mention, you can actually use it to control ocean currents by changing temperature differentials in certain areas, and float them out into certain places, and just be like, okay, we need a cold sink here to maintain this particular ocean current. Okay, bam, got a platform, and it's doing all these wonderful things for us. For those of you who don't realize what we're talking about, it's basically a floating platform of ice and wood. It's like sawdust mixed with water. It's called Pykrete. It has the structural capacity of reinforced concrete, but it's frozen, and it takes very little to keep it frozen. It stays frozen like 10 times longer than ice. It's bulletproof. It ricochets bullets for some reason. Nobody knows why. It's flexible, unlike ice, unlike concrete, but it has the what's it called?
Why are we not using it in schools? Is my question.
Well, because you need compressors. You need compressors and coolant to keep it solid, and it would keep places. I guess in Arizona it would be practical. You need no air conditioning units.
Well, what kind of air conditioning units are we talking? Like swamp coolers? Because
this stuff is basically ice.
Okay.
It's ice that is as hard as concrete, except it's flexible. And if it cracks, you can thaw it a little bit and then refreeze it. And boom.
So it's very useful in states like California and in countries like Japan, because we can build things out of it for like a foundation, so that if an earthquake happens, as is prone for those areas, we could very quickly repair it well enough in order that it doesn't collapse and kill everybody.
I never thought about it as foundational material, but that's actually a brilliant idea.
Well, but how flexible is it? Because the problem is
it'll break.
It'll crack, but here's the thing: is you can thaw it. It'll slightly melt, and then you can refreeze it, and boom, it's solid again.
Yeah, that's why it's an ideal foundation.
And it's reinforced with piping. say like copper piping, something highly temperature conductive, and you fill that piping with coolant below freezing, and that helps keep it at a temperature that keeps it solid.
Yeah, I mean, I would question it because of the fact that California is prone to mudslides by the San Andreas Fault. So something like that would actually.
No, it's not
that's
going to
because
melt.
of idiots building on a hillside. That's not an issue with Pykrete. That's because idiots chose a spot because they like the view.
The concept
Well, it's
of
not
Pykrete,
even an actual hill, but that's besides the point.
the concept of Pykrete is it's like a building. It's a construction material.
No.
It's just a highly useful construction material because it also happens to float. Because it's ice. It's water and sawdust mixed together. And that gives it if you mix the right sawdust with it, a highly reflective surface. You can just have giant floating discs of Pykrete that are powered by a very minimal amount of electricity that are reflecting a huge amount of solar radiation back out into space, floating on the ocean. You can put anything you want on them.
Probably be better off not using it as a foundation in California, but to use it offshore.
Yeah. I would see it more as a foundation in somewhere like Siberia where you have melting, where you have the melting, was it tundra? And you have explosions of methane coming out into the open atmosphere. Yeah. I think it would be really great to like coat all of Siberia, and you wouldn't really need to reinforce it or put any energy really into keeping it frozen. It stays frozen 10 times longer than ice at the same temperature. So I don't know. It would take a lot less effort to keep it frozen. Think about a glacier that melts 10 times slower. It's just too bad we couldn't mix sawdust into our existing glaciers and keep them around a little longer.
Yeah,
hey,
that would,
there's an invention.
Well, that would like totally destroy
the
local environment.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, you need a lot of. Well, it's only 10% to 90% water. So, anyway. And if you use a grass like bamboo or a really highly reproductive plant like hemp, industrial hemp, which we were talking about earlier, and you've got a much more flexible, much higher tension material.
Because like Humboldt County is actually really good for growing hemp, and so is Southern California.
Yeah, I'd like to see it hit the East Coast. And I'm not talking about marijuana or cannabis or like getting high. I'm talking about industrial hemp. Like when they outlawed cannabis, they really, really did a disservice to industrial hemp. And honestly, I believe that might have been the impetus for, finding something wrong with cannabis is like, here's this miracle substance that comes from a plant that grows as a weed, and we can use it for a tremendous amount of materials. And certain newspaper manufacturers didn't want to, replace all their machines with hemp, so they led campaigns against it. Not pointing any fingers, but no, it's hemp was. It's too bad hemp was outlawed. I'm just saying it that way.
It's actually really being widely used in the cosmetics industry lately.
Where are they getting their supply from? We in America should be providing that supply of industrial hemp.
They are. California is. That is exactly how California is partially doing it.
I don't know why the other 50 states haven't legalized industrial hemp. It makes no sense to me. It's like no way is it a drug.
Yeah, no. They're fighting for people who have a lot of skin irritation that it is a lot safer to use hemp than a lot of the talcum powders and stuff used in a lot of the makeup.
I don't care. There's 50,000 industrial applications. There's like 30,000 textile applications alone.
Yeah, I know. Multi-million-dollar industry.
It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And they finally made this hemp separator in the 50s. So, I mean, it's not like we have the hemp gen, like the cotton gen for hemp.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. Anyway, I would like to see a solid I'd say intersolar. Placeholder, help me out here. Is it intersolar going between planets?
Interplanetary.
I like intersolar. I don't know why.
Intrasolar, maybe.
There you go, intrasolar. So, I'd like an intrasolar methane-fueled engine.
Well, if we could get all those methane deposits to cool back down, we might still have them.
That's kind of why I'd like to see the engine. Is it creates the demand to start bottling the methane and sending it up. I don't think methane's going to do a huge amount of damage if we release it in the intersolar area or intrasolar area. Yeah. There's no climate change out in space.
Wait, say that again?
There's no climate change in space.
Well,
we have a debris
it depends
problem.
on what you mean by climate in space. Like, I mean, the climate changes in space is in like different concentrations of radiation, but
all right. It's pretty arrogant for us to think that we change the climate here on Earth. But
we demonstrably have.
I'm sure that we've
have
done
a
lot of
trash
damage
patch in the ocean the size of a state.
I get that. I'm not saying that that's not a man-made like pollution problem. But if we think we can kill this planet, we are morons, and we are way full of ourselves. This planet will be fine way after we are gone. Maybe not the life on it, but
I disagree because I think that we should have a future in that, and the fact that we can change the climate means that we can change it back by undoing as much as we can. We probably won't be able to get below the 1.5 degree mark because people are stupid. Not you, like people as in people.
No, I get you. It's Men in Black, I think, said it best. They said a person is smart. They can be reasoned with. People are stupid, panicky, and irrational.
This is true.
Yeah. Well, no. It goes the other way as well. There are people who grow comfortable, complacent, and lazy.
Yeah, we call them socialists. I'm sorry, we're not a political. I'll back
I
up.
was thinking more climate change deniers, but
yeah,
I'm not a climate change denier. Here's the thing. And here's the thing about the word denier. I'm gonna go ahead and say this for the record, and anybody who'd like to challenge me on it, please find me on Twitter. Leave the brain trust out of it.
He's suspended at the moment. So.
Yeah, I'm going off the record here, off the reservation, and saying that the scientific method, the very concept, the spirit, the idea, the belief, the spirit of the scientific method is to deny conventional thinking. So if you call somebody a denier, you are calling them a scientist. So back off with that crap. The first step in the scientific method is to deny conventional wisdom.
There's a difference between denying conventional wisdom and denying reality.
Reality is, by the way,
the consequences of ignoring reality.
No,
I'm gonna stay out of this one.
I'll agree with that. But I'd also like to point out one more time that anybody who ever says that the science is settled does not understand how science works. Science is never settled. There was a day when the world was flat and everybody knew it was flat. And the very next day, everybody knew the world was round. I know that's hyperbole. I know it's BS. I know I'm just kind of making this up, but think about it. There was a day when people thought if you threw rags in the corner, they magically turned into rats. And the very next day, Louis Pasteur proved that wasn't true. So there was a day when everybody believed something was wrong, and the day after when everybody knew it was wrong. Just keep that in mind, because science, the only absolute about science is that everything you know today can be proven wrong tomorrow. I'm done. That's it. Rant over. I'm back on the record.
There's a lot wrong with everything you just said. but I think we should try to get back on topic.
Yeah. Inventions for the future. Speaking of climate change and the giant massive and Placeholder knows my soft spot is the ocean. So yeah, you hit me where it hurts, man. But yeah, I think we definitely need to come up with an invention for scouring plastics from our ocean.
So there's this really cool one that this guy made that's able to keep harbors clean. He claims that it's scalable. So I'm curious, but what it is like a Roomba for the ocean. But instead of it being vacuum, it's like 2 GPS operated drones that just dragged at the ocean.
I think that I don't know. That could be pretty dangerous for stupid species.
Well, no, it's
drag. I hate drag. I hate drag nets.
Oh no, it doesn't go deep enough to damage the local environment.
If it's touching the environment, it's damaging the local environment.
I'm pretty sure removing plastic is going to be good for the environment. Period.
The next, we have somebody in the chat saying the next step in human development is biological machines through molecular and by extension genetic engineering. I think nanotech
100% agree and totally on board.
Yeah.
I knew exactly where.
Will and I already.
That's all right. It was bound to happen. It's all right.
Yeah. Sorry, man. So Placeholder and I have already discussed this to a great degree.
Mm-hmm.
I think, or at least we're in the same mindset about it. Yeah. I'm all ready for the 3D printed liver that I'm going to need by the time I'm 40, which is in 2 years. Jesus Christ, I'm gonna need that liver soon. Most plastics versus. Yeah.
So the Illusionist also has a really interesting idea for this. Most plastics are very susceptible to static charge. So what if one could use some sort of a Tesla coil to charge microplastics and suck them up? That is a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm still thinking, by the way, the first person who is able to transmit their consciousness into the World Wide Web is going to own the internet.
So the Illusionist actually has contacted me on Twitter, and I am inviting him on.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm going to invite you guys to carry on this conversation for the next few minutes while I discuss an invention for clearing one's bladder without having to get up.
That works, right?
Okay, the Illusionist, check your Discord. I like the idea of a Tesla coil to pick up microplastics because that's a very good point that I hadn't even thought about. If there's a way that we can use it to, it would only be effective against surface plastic, but even then we could use that to help clear out Trash Island essentially. we can use that, and we can like run it over inland waters to try and get the microplastics out of our water supply, because like that is a huge problem for us. A lot of us have plastic in our body and we don't even think about it because of like things like glitter. It gets worked into the water supply, and it like gets into your food, and you eat it and you don't notice it.
Glitter is everywhere, says the makeup artist, who has like piles of it in a case and uses it whenever she can. It's evil. But I love it. But yeah.
Ugh, sorry guys, I'm really congested. Like my allergies are acting up really bad lately. We just had this massive like weather shift, so we're dealing with that. And welcome to Lucius. Thank you so much for joining us.
How do you do?
Hello.
I'm well. How are you?
Not too bad, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Your suggestion for a Tesla coil for microplastics is really interesting. Maybe there was a way we could like. Okay, so it would only work against like surface plastics, right?
Yeah, so the problems right after I said that, I thought that would not really work very well in the case of oceans, because the thing that makes water conductive of electricity is not water itself. It's ionic compounds. So like the salt in salt water. And so in the case of oceans, it might work, but it wouldn't be very effective. It would use a lot of power, and you would end up mostly creating, you would do a lot of electrolysis as an unintended side effect. So I don't think it would be very effective.
That's actually why shallow water is more effective at conducting electricity than deeper water is, because water itself is not quite that conductive as people think. It's not
also
quite a resistor, but it's not. He's absolutely right. It's the metallic and ionic compounds within any given body of water that make it conductive.
Now, what might make this an interesting and useful invention, though, is instead of running it over the oceans, we can run these over our water supply. We can use it to collect microplastics out of the water supply and help remove it not only from the environment, but from our diet.
That might work, yeah. Because I know in the case of, this isn't really related, but the same general principle could maybe be figured out eventually. When you are trying to isolate DNA from a solution, you can do something similar, where you place basically a column, and on either side of the column, I don't remember the specific material, and then you pass your solution that has DNA in it through it, and the molecules that comprise DNA are naturally attracted to this material. And so then as you're passing the fluid through it, it builds up on the edges, and then you can isolate your DNA that way. And so maybe in the future, a similar type of mechanism could be discovered, where we could pass running water over some sort of material, and it would naturally attract the microplastics to it.
Honestly, when it comes to microplastics, I think the future is in genetically engineering algae. And I'm sorry, not algae, but coral. I think coral would be more effective than algae at clearing the ocean of microplastics. But
I think algae would be useful for shallow and fresh waters, though, because algae loves fresh water.
Yeah, algae does not do well in saltwater. Algae blooms in saltwater are toxic. We don't like them. If you see them, kill them with fire. I mean, but as far as I think coral for saltwater, I think algae for freshwater. Thanks, Placeholder. Appreciate that backup. But I think another concept is harmonic frequencies. I think we need to start R&Ding more harmonic frequency and harmonic frequency interference concepts, because there's some really fascinating
like
science. No, like directed harmonic frequencies.
I don't understand what you mean by harmonic frequencies.
Sound waves.
Well,
To okay,
do what?
so
Smart ass.
You know what? I'm gonna go over some books on Tesla when you get to Georgia. You and I'm gonna give you some books to read. But
Sure, I love books, but
Yeah, he does.
do what? Like, because we can I can use
frequencies.
harmonic frequencies to talk to an echo.
Well, harmonic frequencies resonate within certain materials and certain molecular compounds resonate at certain harmonic frequencies, and we can use that to make them do things. And we haven't really R&D'd it enough to figure out where we're going, so I don't really know how to talk about the subject.
Well, we have RFIDs.
Are you talking about what they're doing right now with epilepsy?
I have no idea what they're doing with epilepsy. I know that there's
They're
a guy
using,
that
sound frequencies to help.
Yeah, they've done the same thing with cancer patients, and it got outlawed by the FDA because it was too effective.
To help with seizures and to.
Yeah, it hasn't been done since like the 50s.
Yeah.
But no, it's really interesting stuff, and like in labs, they can actually make like pieces of glass float in the air and spin around at certain RPM and like along certain axes. It's really amazing stuff. They could like make certain metals float and make them do certain things. Like as they float, they'll move around in a circle or something like that. It's really amazing stuff. Just by hitting them with certain frequencies of sound.
There are a lot of companies that are working with that general principle of wave interference, especially with ultrasonic sound waves.
Yeah.
One example that was in the news recently.
By the way, I'd like to thank you for coming in with some terminology that makes me sound less crazy.
Well, I'm happy to be able to help, but I'm not sure I know a whole lot either.
Sorry, as you were saying.
So I know it was in the news. I don't particularly remember when, but there was a laboratory that had used ultrasonic wave interference to make droplets of water levitate at varying heights, and they were able to control its motion, its spin, just by altering the interference patterns.
Yeah.
And there's another company that is looking to use the exact same technology except for non-invasive brain surgery.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
that's what they're doing with
the application concepts are amazing. And it's not just concept like curing cancer, curing epilepsy. There's all kinds of things. I think it was somewhere in one of the books I have on God, his name escapes my mind. I just said it a minute ago. Tesla. About how if you can find the harmonic frequency of any metal, you can actually attract it like a magnet. And the concept is you know, they say ocean water is made up of like 0.01% gold. If you found the frequency of gold, you could harmonically attract it. And just dangle a little microphone or a little speaker at the bottom of a little piece of metal and drive back and forth through the oceans. Pull it up. Big bar of gold.
Yeah, there's a lot of up and coming technologies that are just now in that phase where everybody is realizing some of the potential applications, and I think once it hits that point, that's when the money starts coming in.
Yeah, you just got to be able to sell it so that you can use it for the application you want to use it for, which will eventually be developed once you get somebody to put money on it. That's how a capitalist system works.
Oh yeah, well it's much like many of the things that NASA spin-off projects have created. You know, just by virtue of them having a massive R&D department, basically trying to get them to the moon. Since then, it has led to so many different advancements. You know, now we have aeronautics grade aluminum. We have advancements in rocketry and solid and liquid fuels.
Have you heard about the transparent metals? That
Oh yeah, sure.
that's really amazing technology as well.
I've only seen transparent aluminum, I think is what it was. But...
Yeah, and to hear that phrase come out in real life was like, you're kidding.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a Star Trek thing, right? Like, no, it's real.
Amazing.
It's actual. We figured out how to make aluminum transparent. Holy crap! Are you kidding me? But we have. It's we live in amazing times. So the best we've come up with is like a new app for Grindr here on the Brain Trust.
Oh God!
By comparison to what we've already invented. I mean, metaphorically speaking.
Oh God.
But no, I do think cleaning the oceans out is probably our next big goal. I think that should be a huge goal of ours. And restoring the fish population, which I honestly is that's my thing is, like, a lot of people care about the plastics. The plastics are a problem, but I see the fish population as the bigger problem. That's why my obsession with the Pykrete, I think of it as like you could build so many fisheries into this concept.
Deep water farms.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where my real passion lies, is restoring the fish population. I don't care about the plastics. If I can get people to come in and clean out the plastics and in turn restore the fish population, then we're on the same page.
Right, but you see, like, so the nanite idea would be to turn it into any inorganic material into organic material. So plastic is turned into fish food.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Into I could even turn it into minerals like salts and adjust the salinity to improve the population. So like that would start to completely resolve that problem, because
where do the nanites go?
Fishing. They just fly around. They're solar powered.
Solar powered, so they don't go deep ocean. They can't.
Eventually they would, but
how would they be powered then?
They would be powered off of bioluminescence. I would have bioluminescent cells put in that generate the electricity for it.
All right, where do the bioluminescents get their energy? They have to consume something in order to do that. That's where the bio part comes from.
You don't know. You could use salt to initiate bioluminescence.
Okay, all right. I'm not aware of that. I'll go ahead and take your word for it. But if that works, then that works.
Well, because it's
look.
It's an electrolyte.
This is a brainstorm. This is brainstorming. So if you tell me, hey, this is an idea, then it's an idea.
So it can generate a saline solution within the cell. It doesn't have to be a living thing. We can call the nanite cells for the purpose of discussion, but we can use the cells, drop them in the ocean. We can make them self-replicating using biological processes, and we can just release them, and they have a self-destruct button so that they don't become overpopulated in the ocean. They eat up all the plastic. When there's no more plastic, they die.
So you want to play God?
Why?
You want to make a creature. You want to create a form of robotic life.
Sure.
I mean, we already do similar things.
Yeah. We've hybridized and turned like mosquitoes, bees, flies, caterpillars, worms.
Why can't we? Why can't we just
small rodents into cyborgs that we can control? We've already done this.
Yeah.
Like, there was this experiment that was done where they removed the brain and central nervous system of a mouse, put it in a drone, and it acted like a mouse.
That's pretty amazing. Here's my problem. Here's my problem with the idea of putting a brain into a robot, is you don't have any of the glands that give up the hormones that control behavior. And so
it died like 2 hours later.
Yeah, what you're left with is a brain of pure thought and absolutely no emotional restraint. And that is a dangerous concept. In my purview, I believe that most brains under that condition would be serial killers.
Oh, sure, it'd be bad for a human or organic brain, but if we were to build a brain, perhaps we could simulate it, and then we would have cyber brains like Ghost in the Shell.
What I worry about is having read so much about, like, because I worry that, you know, that the world's full of crazy people.
It is full of crazy people.
So I read a lot about serial killers and stuff like that. And after reading a lot of them and reading a lot about them, I have to worry that a purely logical entity might very well become a serial killer. The logic, the logic of serial killers is it is so sound it is frightening.
Well, this is the thing. It's most extreme serial killers that get away with it are very charismatic. Would a robot be that charismatic is the question.
No, but the technical...
It depends on its chassis, but we're getting distracted.
No, I wouldn't think it would be but we're talking about inventions, and I'm talking about the worries of inventions. Like, we're talking about, like, all right, jokes aside, you know, Apple's making a new smart toilet called the IP.
Nice.
But that all right, I'm done with the jokes. But honestly, inviting robotics into our world and electronics into our life on a psychological mental basis, I think is just inviting a really dangerous entity. I don't think most people will handle it, and I think in the end, the cyborgs will kill us all.
Well, I think going back to your example, how you were talking about how if you separate the brain from the body, you're missing the essential neurotransmitters that are emitted from glands. You don't really need them if you can trigger the receptors that the neurotransmitters interact with, because that's really, like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the anatomy of the average brain cell. Neurotransmitters just interact with these sort of connectors that accept that neurotransmitter and then fire electrical impulses along the, what's the word? I think it's the axon or the dendrite. It's one of those. I can never remember.
Yeah, the basic parts of it.
The axons are the actual transmitter, but it goes up the dendrite into the actual neuron itself.
But my point is, hormonal balance is what keeps people emotionally stable and allows them emotional control over the mental inhibition.
So,
in other words, in order to suppress certain logical conclusions that a purely logical based brain would come to, you need some sort of hormonal balance.
So I have had this exact argument with him and said that we can, like, simulate the electrical activity in that part of the brain. We can synthesize and create synthetic.
But that doesn't allow for
digitize it and create essentially an analog for it.
But you're making a slave of the brain then. What's the point?
Is it not already a slave to chemistry?
It's a slave to its own chemistry, which I'm sure it's okay with because it's creating that chemistry. Now,
I am a slave, and that is okay.
I'm sure that a lot of schizophrenics would argue with me here, but I would argue that schizophrenics have reason to argue with me here. Normal people do not.
Do you realize I know a schizophrenic that I could probably ask this question, but that would unlock a whole
pointing out
lot.
that schizophrenics are in the situation that they're in because they have a hormonal imbalance in their brain. Yeah, so they would be in a position to argue with me, but the reason that they're arguing with me is because they're insane. It's kind of a three punch. Like, there's really not arguing with the concept of you kind of need these things to keep your brain in check. So if you're going to connect a human brain to a machine, without these glands and without these hormones, you're going to end up with a machine that wants to kill everything.
Be careful, Dolphin. Dolphin, you're making an argument against free will.
Yeah, you are.
It is, and that's the thing is, I
Not very
respect free
becoming of a
will.
Catholic, my
I
friend.
respect free will so much that I believe that you should not connect the human brain to a machine without the glands going with it, and without the hormones going with it. I believe that it should be a biomechanical machine. If you're going to invent something to put a new brain into and make it a biomechanical machine, that's it. That's all I say. You know, make it something susceptible to the hormone balance that the glands of the original brain create. That way, it still has its own personal, individual free will.
We've had this argument
Mm-hmm.
several times now.
Because if you program its will, then it's no longer. You've just made another. You might as well just plug in a PC. What's your point? What's the point?
Okay, I am a biological computer that just one day came into existence without knowing where I came from, much as a computer would. And just learned to adjust to the new reality, much as a computer also likely would. So there's really no issue with having
But a computer
not only artificial intelligence, but human intelligence melded with machine. There's really no moral problem with it.
Okay, let me ask you this.
We have already addressed the hormone problem.
You as your computer, do you choose what to do?
Okay.
No, hold on.
No. That's a loaded question. That is a loaded question.
No, it's not a loaded question. It's a yes or no. Do you choose what to do, or do you wait for programming?
In a sense, yes. It depends on what we're talking about.
Yes to what? Do you choose what to do, or do you wait on programming?
So
because you're comparing
10 seconds before you make it. With the exception of live conversation, our brains don't have that kind of time. That's where we come in. But let's say you're hungry, or let's say you're asked to make a decision. Your brain has made up its decision up to 10 seconds before you're conscious of it having been made. So in a sense, I have control over my actions, but in a sense, I don't. Because there are
I totally get
parts of my brain that act before my conscious brain, or conscious mind rather, is aware. So that's why I have to be this specific about it, because if we're talking about preformed thoughts, like my body is telling my brain I'm hungry, so my brain is deciding to go and find something to eat, then no, I really don't have control over that. Whereas if we're having a conversation and I'm able to choose my words in real time, then I do. Or if, you and I are there sometime or hanging out, like depending on the context, I may have already decided to punch you 10 seconds before I'm aware of having made the decision to punch you.
Really?
Well, no,
that's pretty severe, dude. No, okay. No, I get that. I get the argument because if that was not true, the number of people who would not get yelled at for drinking milk straight out of the carton would decrease ridiculously. Because I guarantee you, every single time I've been caught doing it, I've been like, "Holy crap, what am I doing?" And my body just told me to go get some milk. I needed some,
Just like the smell from the fridge when we were over at your house.
Yeah.
But you see, in a sense, we don't have control. We don't have free will because our body does things for us. We don't choose to breathe. We don't choose when our heart beats. Our body takes care of that for us.
No, I get that. But that's kind of my point, is that your body controls a lot of the aspects that make you capable of interacting with other humans in a reasonable fashion. And when you remove that, all you're left with is the thinking mind of a human being. And that can be a really dangerous thing when left unchecked by an emotional constraint.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Dolphin, we've already addressed that, though, by saying that we can simulate the hormones.
Yeah, but by simulating those hormones,
the brain electronically or electrically with intracranial diodes. You can do that. There's no reason
but
for
that's
us
mind
not
control.
to if that's the only concern.
That's mind control.
Not if it's made to spec for that person.
No. Well,
the only difference between doing it electrically and doing it chemically is we're skipping the chemical step.
Exactly. It makes it easier, and the upkeep winds up being a little bit lower if we just have the electrical stimulation.
I think it would be absolutely necessary if you were going to put somebody's consciousness into a computer. It would be absolutely necessary to put in a program that regulates their hormones.
Well, of course.
And if that's a computer program based on their original program, then
right? Okay. But hang on, how else would you control like their level of hormones?
I honestly don't feel like you should. I don't feel like it's this is all way beyond acceptable to me. Ethics left the building when we talked about putting consciousness into a computer.
Okay, so ethics aside, let's think about this objectively. Let's take ethics.
I'm way beyond my comfort zone here already. Like I'm way out in the open. So I have to say, even way out here in the open, I cannot condone controlling another person's brain.
Your body does it to you every day.
Giving that person control of their own brain.
But allowing their body to do it is allowing what they were given to begin with to do it. Not a computer program that was built. I don't know. It all seems so manufactured to me. I cannot. I can't. That's the line I can't cross.
Well,
I think we should like put a pin in this discussion and have a part 2 in the near future.
Yes,
absolutely.
I agree.
Because I really think this is a brilliant discussion. I'm really enjoying the way it's going. I just don't think it's going to go a lot further. Not at least not now.
We start talking
I'll tell you what.
Genetic engineering.
Let me mellow on it for a little while, and we'll talk about it more. In the meantime, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Apathy. Yay. Anyway, that brings our brain trust to a close here. It is midnight, and we will see you next week on Wednesday for advancing the third world in a responsible manner. How we can do that, and you're free to jump into the discussion. Who do we have here, by the way? I'm still kind of like lost on this. I pull up his face and all it says is D.
Yeah, so this is the Illusionist. He contacted me on actually a very interesting YouTuber's channel.
I love that view. I love that. I love that that artwork, by the way.
Thank you. I wish I made it.
Examining the world close up. I like it.
But anyway, he reached out to me on one of the servers that I shilled on for Burger Craig, his server, which, by the way, if you're not subscribed, go check out his stuff. It's really cool. I have been subscribed to him for like 6 months now, and only a few videos have been kind of missed for me, but really interesting stuff. And I put it on there, and like 5 minutes after I posted that, Illusionist reached out. I kind of wish I'd looked sooner because like I'm kind of ignoring Discord because it's been going off a little bit today. But Illusionist,
not my fault. Not my fault.
All right, fair enough. Well, go ahead and shill your everything that you got to shill here, Illusionist. You did a great job. We loved having you on.
It was a pleasure.
Go ahead and shill your stuff, man. Tell us where we can find you.
Well, I don't really use social media, so you can find me on Discord, or you can send me an email, and that's about it.
Yeah, otherwise, piss off.
All right. Thank you, man. I appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, and that's it. That's a wrap. Have a good night.